started with a mistake, a big one, a high-end restaurant, an arrogant manager, and a man they didn't recognize. He wasn't dressed in a designer suit. He didn't have a Rolex on his wrist. He wasn't loud or flashy. And that's why they made the worst decision of their lives. They humiliated him, told him he wasn't their kind of customer, and escorted him out. The staff smirked. The guests whispered. But what happened next week? Nobody saw it coming. Because he returned. But this time, he owned the place. If you love wild, real-life stories where the tables turn and the powerful get humbled, subscribe to Storygram now. We bring you the best true stories every day. And trust me, you do not want to miss what happens next. Los Angeles, a city where wealth and status rule everything. Where a person's worth is judged by what they wear, what they drive, and who they know. Inside Le Merville, one of the most exclusive restaurants in Beverly Hills, the air was thick with money. Rich couples clinked glasses of wine that cost more than most people's rent. Brokers and lawyers talked in hushed voices over dry-aged steak. The staff moved like clockwork, polished, professional, trained to cater only to the elite. And then he walked in, Keanu Reeves. Only, they didn't know it was him. Dressed in faded jeans and a black t-shirt, his hair a little messy, he didn't fit the mold. He wasn't surrounded by an entourage. He wasn't acting like a celebrity. He was just a man, tired after a long day, looking for a quiet meal. But to the manager, he was a problem. Standing behind the front desk, Derek Holloway had been working at Le Merville for 5 years. He had one job: keep the place exclusive, keep out the wrong people. And that's exactly what he thought Keanu was. He gave him a quick, dismissive look. Took in the casual clothes, the relaxed posture. No Rolex. No designer suit. Just another nobody. And in Derek's world, nobodies didn't eat here. Keanu approached the hostess stand, hands in his pockets. "Hey, I was wondering if I could grab a table?" Derek barely glanced at the reservation book. "I'm sorry, sir," he said. "Not sorry at all. We're fully booked tonight." Keanu's brow furrowed slightly. He glanced around. Half the tables were empty. "Really?" he asked, his voice calm. "It looks like you have space." Derek's smile was thin. Fake, practiced. "Yes, well, those tables are reserved for members and VIP guests." Keanu nodded slowly. He could have pulled out his phone, made one call, and had the owner personally seat him. But he didn't. Instead, he did something that made Derek's blood boil. He didn't beg. He didn't argue. He just smiled. "No problem," Keanu said. "Have a good night." And with that, he turned and left. Derek watched him go, a smirk playing on his lips. Another nobody. Another problem solved. Or so he thought. Because what happened next would cost him everything. Derek Holloway barely gave the man another thought. He had done what he was supposed to do: keep the restaurant exclusive, keep the wrong kind of people out. It was a quiet victory, the kind he relished. That night, he poured himself a drink after closing and recounted the moment to his staff, turning it into a joke. Some random guy in a t-shirt thought he could just walk in off the street and get a table, he scoffed. "I mean, come on, this isn't a burger joint." The waiters chuckled, the hostess rolled her eyes, and Derek basked in their approval. But while he was laughing, something else was happening. Because of the nobody he had just turned away, he wasn't anybody. The next morning, the whispers started. Someone had recognized the man after he left. A busboy, scrolling through his phone on break, saw a photo and froze. His heart nearly stopped. "Holy sh*T," he muttered. It was him. He showed the photo to another staff member. Then another. It spread like wildfire. By noon, even Derek heard the murmurs. "Wait, you're telling me that was—" He laughed, shaking his head. "No way. No chance." But the sinking feeling in his gut told him otherwise. And then, the news broke. Not on TMZ. Not through a press release. Just a single tweet. "Just watched a restaurant turn away Keanu Reeves because he didn't look like a VIP." Wild. The post exploded. Likes. Retweets. Comments. People are fuming. The internet ate it up. Keanu is literally the nicest guy in Hollywood, and this is how you treat him? Bro gave up a reservation for a homeless guy, and y'all think he's not VIP enough? Le Merville is canceled. It wasn't just movie fans. It was everyone. The kind of people who didn't normally care about celebrity gossip. The kind of people who hated places like Le Merville, the arrogance, the exclusivity, the unwritten rules about who belonged. By mid-afternoon, the restaurant's Google rating plummeted. 5 stars. 4.3. 2. Then the phone call started. Customers canceling their reservations. VIP clients are suddenly unavailable. A publicist from corporate called Derek directly, her voice tight. What the hell happened last night? Derek tried to defend himself. He wasn't dressed properly. I didn't recognize him. It's not my fault. But it was. And the worst part? Keanu hadn't even said a word. He didn't post. He didn't comment. He didn't need to. The damage was done. That night, the restaurant was half empty. The next night? Worse. By the weekend, Derek could barely breathe. He tried everything: damage control, calling in favors, reaching out to influencers to drown out the noise. Nothing worked. Because the thing about the internet, once people smell blood, they don't stop. And then, exactly 1 week later, something happened that nobody expected. A black SUV pulled up in front of the restaurant. The door opened, and he stepped out. Keanu Reeves. Same black t-shirt. Same casual jeans. Same easy smile. But this time, he wasn't alone. He walked through the front doors, past the startled hostess, and straight toward Derek. The room fell silent. Derek swallowed hard. He had no idea what to say. But before he could open his mouth, Keanu set a piece of paper on the desk. Derek looked down. His stomach dropped, because printed across the top, bold as hell, were 4 words that changed everything. New ownership agreement. Keanu Reeves didn't come back for revenge. He came back for the whole damn place. Derek's mouth went dry. New ownership? No, that was impossible. His fingers trembled as he picked up the paper. He barely processed the words, but the signatures at the bottom told him everything he needed to know. It was real. Keanu Reeves owned Le Merville, the restaurant. The one Derek had run like his personal kingdom for the last 7 years was no longer his. And the worst part? Everyone in the room knew it. The waiters, the bartenders, the kitchen staff, they all stood frozen, watching their former boss lose everything in real time. Derek looked up at Keanu, his face burning red. You can't do this," he stammered. "This place isn't for sale." Keanu just smiled. "Funny thing about businesses," he said, folding his hands in front of him. "When they start bleeding money, the owners get motivated." Derek felt his stomach turn. The bad press. The canceled reservations. The VIPs are pulling out. The restaurant had been bleeding for a week straight. Corporate had been furious. And now, they had cut their losses. They had sold it right out from under him. Derek clenched his jaw. "You think you could just walk in here and—" Keanu raised a hand. "I don't think, Derek." He leaned in, lowering his voice just enough to make it personal. "I know." The entire room was silent. Even the chefs, who had just moments ago been shouting orders in the kitchen, had stopped talking. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Derek's whole world was crumbling. And Keanu? He just stood there, calm, unshaken, like he had already won. Because he had. And then, he sealed the deal. Keanu reached into his pocket and pulled out something small. He set it on the desk. Derek stared at it. A black name tag. Simple. Sleek. With 2 words engraved on it. Keanu Reeves, owner. Derek barely heard the gasp from one of the hostesses. He barely noticed the staff exchanging wide-eyed glances. All he could see, all he could process, was the end of everything he had built. And then Keanu did the unthinkable. He picked up the name tag and slid it across the desk, straight to Derek. A smirk played at the corner of his lips. "Go ahead," Keanu said. "Put it on." Derek froze. His hands curled into fists. His face went white. And in that moment, he knew. He wasn't the king of this place anymore. He was just another employee. If he wanted to stay, he worked for Keanu Reeves now. Derek's face twisted in rage. His whole body tensed, but he didn't reach for the name tag. Not yet. The entire staff was watching. Some of them barely hiding their smirks. Others were in shock. But all of them knew what Keanu had just done. He'd flipped the entire game. Derek wasn't in charge anymore. The power he'd abused, the people he'd bullied, they weren't his to control. And Keanu? He was standing there, calm as ever, waiting. "So, what's it going to be?" Keanu asked. "Are you staying or walking out that door?" Derek's nostrils flared. He glanced at the staff, at the people he'd humiliated, belittled, and ruled over. They were waiting, too. He couldn't give them the satisfaction. Not like this. Not in front of him. Derek snatched the name tag off the desk. "Fine," he growled. "I'll play along." Keanu's smile didn't falter. "Good choice." Derek pinned the name tag to his chest with stiff fingers. His hands were shaking. Not with fear, with hate. Because he knew, deep down, this wasn't just a new job. This was payback. For the way he'd treated people. For how he'd thrown Keanu out like trash. And Keanu wasn't going to fire him. No, he was going to make him work for him. Make him stand here, night after night, taking orders from the very people he used to step on. Make him feel it. Derek swallowed hard. His pride was screaming at him to walk out, but his bank account said otherwise. He needed this job, and Keanu knew it. "All right then," Keanu said, clapping him on the shoulder. "Let's get to work." Derek's fists clenched. The staff erupted into whispers. And then Keanu turned to them. "All of you," he said, his voice carrying across the room. "We're doing things differently from now on." The staff went silent. "We're fixing this place," Keanu continued. "Not just the service. Not just the food. The way people are treated." He looked around. "I know what's been happening here. I know how this place was run." He nodded toward Derek without looking at him. "That ends now." A few waiters exchanged glances. Some of the bartenders grinned. "And you," Keanu said, turning back to Derek. Derek stiffened. "You're on floor duty tonight." A flicker of confusion crossed Derek's face. "What?" "You heard me," Keanu said. "You're waiting tables." The room went dead silent. And then, a single laugh broke through the tension. One of the waiters, then another, and another, until the entire staff was grinning, smirking, some outright laughing. Derek's face burned. Keanu just watched him, still calm, still in control. And then he said something that made Derek's stomach drop. "Oh, and one more thing." Keanu gestured toward the VIP table. "The best seat in the house. The one reserved for celebrities, politicians, and the ultra-rich." Keanu's smirk widened. "That's your section tonight." Derek felt his whole body go cold. The same table he used to personally serve, rubbing elbows with the elite? Now, he'd be cleaning up after them, waiting on them, like a nobody. Keanu clapped his hands. "All right, people, let's open for the night." And just like that, Derek's new life began. Derek stood there, frozen. His face was pale, his jaw locked so tight it looked like his teeth might crack. But Keanu wasn't waiting. The restaurant was officially open. Customers were already walking in, wealthy businessmen, socialites, even a few recognizable faces from Hollywood. And Derek? He was standing there, paralyzed. "Move," one of the other waiters whispered, nudging him. Derek snapped out of it. He grabbed a menu from the hostess stand and forced his feet forward. The first table. A group of rich-looking executives, laughing over drinks. Derek clenched his fists. A week ago, he would have sat with these people. Now, he had to serve them. "Can I get you started with some drinks?" He muttered through gritted teeth. One of the executives glanced up, didn't even look at Derek, just waved a hand dismissively. Yeah, the usual." Derek's face twitched. The usual? He knew these people. He'd seen them here dozens of times. He should know what they drink. But right now, his mind was blank. Because he never cared. Never paid attention to what anyone else wanted. And now, it was his job. He turned back toward the bar, swallowing his pride like a lump of burning coal. Behind him, he could hear Keanu giving instructions to the staff, telling them how things were going to change, how this restaurant was going to become a place of respect. Derek wanted to punch a wall, but he couldn't, because the second he walked behind the bar, the bartender, a guy named Luis who'd been working here for years, grinned at him. Well, Luis said, wiping a glass. "Look who's on our side of the counter." Derek didn't reply. Luis smirked. "What's the order?" Derek's eye twitched. He didn't know. He didn't listen. Luis raised an eyebrow. You don't remember, do you? Derek's hands curled into fists. Luis chuckled. Man, Karma's got a twisted sense of humor. Derek swallowed hard. Just give me a minute. Luis shook his head, still smirking. You're gonna need more than a minute, boss. Derek wasn't the boss anymore. And everyone knew it. Across the restaurant, Keanu was watching. He wasn't smirking. He wasn't gloating. But he was making sure Derek felt it. Because this wasn't about revenge. It was about making things right. For every server Derek had belittled. For every worker he'd bullied. For every moment he made someone feel like they were less than him. Now, he had to earn his place. And Keanu? He wasn't going to make it easy.